بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue a study of al-Isti'ādah from Ādāb al-Salāt by the late Imam Khomeini about seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Chapter 3 is about the arkan, about the pillars of Isti'ādah. We said there are 4 pillars, 4 you can say aspects, 4 sides. We already studied the first one, al-Musta'īdh. Who is doing Isti'ādah? Who is asking or seeking refuge? We discussed this. Number 2, al-Musta'ādhu min, from whom or what you are seeking refuge. We say A'udhu billah minash shaitan. So Isti'ādah minash shaitan. Okay, so shaitan is al-Musta'ādhu min. Inshallah we'll talk about this. Number 3, al-Musta'ādhu bih. Who is the one that you want to provide you with refuge? Say A'udhu billah. Fasta'idh billah. So Allah is al-Musta'ādhu bih. Number 4, al-Musta'ādhu li'ajlih. For what sake, you are asking refuge? What do you want to achieve? So al-Musta'īdh, we discussed. Al-Musta'ādhu min, we need to discuss. Al-Musta'ādhu bih, we need to discuss. Al-Musta'ādhu min ajlih. So let us start with al-Musta'ādhu min, which is shaitan. The main person and thing that we ask Allah to provide us refuge with respect to that is shaitan or iblis. It has many different traps for stopping us from continuing our journey to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says some of the great Ahlul Ma'rifah, some of the experts in theoretical irfan, they have an idea about the reality of shaitan that Imam Khomeini doesn't accept. He respects them. He says, بَعْزَ أَعَازِمِ as Ahl Ma'rifat. They're some of the great people of Ma'rifah, but he doesn't accept. The idea that Imam doesn't accept is to say that shaitan is not a person, not a being, not a jinn, as we'll explain. They say shaitan, the reality, haqiqah of shaitan, is the whole universe from the aspect of being other than God. حقیقت شیطان عبارت است از جمیع عالم به جنبه سوائیه. What does it mean? We have Allah and we have the universe, alam, ma siwa Allah. Ma siwa Allah should be manifestation of God, should be sign or signs for God, should reflect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? But if ma Allah becomes by itself independent for us, that is shaitan. So anything has the potential of becoming shaitan depending on your attitude. If you take it independent from Allah, then it becomes shaitan. Although this idea is not free from truth in the sense that this is a dangerous and very harmful approach, but still this doesn't mean that to say this is shaitan. Yes, maybe this is satanic, but shaitan is a reality. We don't accept that shaitan is just a kind of abstract idea. Shaitan is a reality. And he says, ابلیس حقیقتی است که دارای تجرد مثالی. Iblis has a kind of immaterial being, but not full, mujarrad. It's not three-dimensional like us. If it is, we say it's a jinn, so jinn are maddi in philosophical sense, but in physical sense, they are not maddi. Because madde in physics is different from madde in philosophy. Madde in philosophy means to have potentials. Madde in physics means to be three-dimensional. There is umum khusus, mutlaq between them. So jinn is coming with potentials. Jinn comes from worldly aspect of this universe, but you cannot take jinn into a laboratory and do physical tests on jinns. Yes, they can do tamathul, they can take form of a human being, for example, but they themselves are not three-dimensional, therefore they can easily move, even go from one part of the world to another part of the world, carry things very quickly. Anyway, Iblis, according to the Qur'an, kana min al-jinn. So it's a reality. And the real shaitan, Iblis, is the head of Abalisa. Abalisa is the plural for Iblis. So Iblis is singular, but if we use it as a general title, then all the shaitans are Abalisa or shayateen. And there are some discussions here about what is the reality of human being, what is the reality of shaitan. He says it's out of the scope of this book. What is important for us is whatever in a spiritual journey becomes an obstacle, becomes a thorn, khar. Imagine you are walking and there are some thorns. It can stop you or it can injure you. You start bleeding, you slow down. Sometimes you have to stay till you cure yourself. So whatever causes a problem, obstacle on the journey, it is shaitan or mazahir, manifestations of shaitan. It can be something that happens to us, to our soul. It can be a reaction to the things which happen outside. For example, he says, faqr wa ghina, poverty and rich, both can become an obstacle. Not necessarily, it depends on our approach. Maybe there are people who are poor and they are very successful in their spiritual journey. But if faqr stops you, or ghina, or siha and maraz, health or illness, power or lack of power, knowledge or ignorance. He says all can become obstacles. Even more, he says sometimes even heaven can become an obstacle. Even very strong arguments about Tawheed can become obstacle, because anything that makes you forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it is the knowledge about Tawheed, even it's about thinking about going to heaven, it's a kind of obstacle for you. He says sometimes one of the traps of shaitan is you become busy and you enjoy maqamat ma'navi, spiritual, positions or stations, or you reaching spiritual degrees, ranks. For example, you have good dreams, you have good experiences, you have good salat, I don't know, maybe you have some mukashafat, maybe you can see something about the hidden or unseen world. If these also become for you a kind of thing that draw your attention away from Allah, they are also satanic. So it's not only bad things, even good things. You have to be very careful. So he says some of the Ahl Ma'rifat also have this problem. They become busy with that. So as a summary, bil jumla, he says whatever stops you from God and makes you distracted from Jamal Jamil Mahbub, covers you so that you cannot see the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is your shaitan. It can be in the form of a human being, it can be in the form of a jinn, and any means that does this, it's trap of shaitan. It can be maqamat, madarij, it can be high positions, ranks, knowledge, ulum, kamalat, perfections, or it can be job, it can be comfort, it can be pain, it can be anything that diverts your attention from God. It's a trap of shaitan. So تعلق قلب بغير حق, if your heart belongs to anything other than Allah, this is wrong. This is a trap of shaitan, and we should do ista'adha. Ista'adha is you want to be protected from this. Then he refers to what is reported from the Prophet in Biharul Anwar, that Rasulullah used to say, أعوذ بوجه الله الكريم وبكلمات الله التي لا يجاوزهن بر ولا فاجر من شر ما ينزل من السماء وما يعرج فيها وشر ما ينزل من الأرض وما يخرج منها ومن شر فتن الليل والنهار ومن شر طوالق الليل والنهار إلا طارقا يطرق بخير. I seek refuge with Allah, but instead of saying first أعوذ بالله, Rasulullah says أعوذ بوجه الله الكريم, face of God, which is honorable or is generous or noble, and with words of God. Kalimatullah. It's amazing. From what? From anything bad that comes down from the sky or goes high towards the sky, anything that comes out of the earth, any difficulties of the night, day, any bad thing that someone who knocks in the night or day, except those who knock with goodness. So it means from anything that has the potential of being harmful, we need to protect ourselves. استعاذ بوجه الله, أعوذ بوجه الله. And then استعاذ بكلمات الله. Imam Khomeini says this kind of استعاذ means you are sinking or diving into the ocean of beauty and glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the closer we get to Allah, the chance of shaitan being stopped is more. Shaitan cannot come very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are away from Allah, shaitan can attack you, but if you are very close, shaitan cannot. The third pillar is musta'adhu bih. So, al-musta'adhu min, we said, is Iblis. Al-musta'adhu bih, the one that we ask him to give us refuge, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, again, this has different degrees depending on your position. In Surah An-Nas, we say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. So, Imam Khomeini believed that this is a kind of gradual rise. Sometimes we have أعوذ بكلمات الله, as we quoted from Rasulullah. So, we, depending on our experience with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how close we are and what challenges we are facing, we may use different things to refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We may use Wajhullah or Kalimatullah or Rabbin Nas, Malikin Nas, the King of the people, Ilahin Nas, God of people. It's all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but depends on how close you are. And even he believes that it can reach the point that you just say A'udhu bika minka, as we discussed last week or last session 2 weeks ago. A'udhu bika, you just use pronoun. But what is interesting, at the end he says استعاذه بسم الله بواسطه جامعیت مناسب با همه مقامات است. If you say أعوذ بالله, because Allah is an ism which is jami, which we say jami, jami as-sifat wa kamalat, is Allah refers to the essence which has all the beauties and all the perfection. So this is a comprehensive one. You can say, someone who is lower than you can say, someone who is higher than you can say, someone is like Rasulullah can say A'udhu Billah. So it's mutlaq, like ziyarat mutlaq, that you can use for different imams, for example, different times. This also is ista'adhi mutlaq. Ista'adhi bismillah means A'udhu Billah min ash-shaytan. The fourth and the final is al-musta'adhu lah. What is the result? What is the end? What you want to achieve? So, of course, we want to achieve perfection, felicity, goodness, but in each stage they are translated differently. So sometimes for you just to get rid of sins, and sometimes, I don't know, being away from hijab, the veils of tabi'ah, is the problem. Sometimes no, you go to higher and to get rid of your thoughts, your khayal becomes the issue that you want to be protected from. Sometimes even you reach the point that your spiritual findings become something that you want to be not affected by them. So there are different aspects that perfection can have in a gradual and hierarchical process. So basically we want all of them, but it's gradual. If I am in the year 1 of the school, in a primary school, although it is very important that I have long-term plan, but the main challenges for me as a person in the year 1 are very specific, and I don't need to maybe even worry about the challenges of high school or university, etc. But they are there, all there. So he says, when you come out of the house of the nafs, Bayt nafs, nafs ammara is like a house. When you come out of this, because the journey is to leave your house, and then you start tasting spiritual positions, then your understanding of your destiny or your maqsad becomes more and more perfect. And then you reach in a position that you only want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says maybe we can say it in this way as a possibility. For example, first you say wajjahtu wajhi liwajhi Allah. Wajjahtu wajhi liwajhi Allah. I turn my face to face of God. Man ahsanu dinan mimman aslama wajhahu lillah. But he says first is wajh for wajh. Then wajjahtu wajhi li asma'illah. Like we had in the saying of Rasulullah, we had wajhillah, then kalimatillah. So wajjahtu wajhi li asma'illah. Then maybe you can say wajjahtu wajhi lillah. Asma'illah lillah are close, but then you say wajjahtu wajhi lahu. Lahu pronoun in Irfan is very important, because it's the referring to the position that you are so near that you don't need to use the name. Therefore, for example, sometimes they say Yahoo, because they have such a close experience of Allah that they want to refer to him as who. In any case, then he says, therefore, maybe wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal ard is for the first position, because you are talking about Fatir, and Fatir is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's before reaching the position of wajjahtu wajhiya lillah or wajjahtu wajhiya lahu. Anyway, these scholars take all these words very seriously, and they say that there is a reason why these things are used. It's not just because they wanted to be, for example, Allah wanted to be creative, sometimes He says, waj, sometimes He says ism, sometimes, for example, He says zamir. No, they say everything has a reason. So, again, as a summary, سالک در هر مقامی غایت حقیقی او حصول کمال و سعادت است بالذات. The wayfarer in every position, every station, his real end is to achieve perfection and felicity essentially. But because for every level of felicity and perfection, Shaitan has traps which would stop you in that position, Salik has to ask Allah for refuge. This is the idea, depending on different situations. So, Ista'adha has this ghaya, this end, this result, al-musta'adhu li-ajlih, that you want to gain that perfection that at that level, at that position you are supposed to get so that you can continue. Suppose in every station you have to get some provision, or in every station of learning you have to learn something, then you go to the next level. So in that level, protection means to be able to get what you have to get so that you can go to the next level. In worldly travels, maybe in a station, if you don't get what you want, still you can carry on, but then later you face problem. For example, we stop in a station, there is no petrol. We have to carry on, but then half the way maybe we stop. But in a spiritual journey, you cannot go to the next station and leave this station unless you get what you want. Otherwise, you remain in that or go backward. So, Ista'adha is to be able to overcome these traps of Shaitan and get from this station that Kamal and Sa'ada, perfection and felicity that you want to get from this. But Ghayatul Ghayat wa Muntahat Talabat, the end of the ends, the ultimate end is Haqq Ta'ala, is Allah Himself. That is what we want to achieve. If you get that close to Allah, then everything else, goes away. And we said, when you reach that level, there is no need for ista'adha because Shaitan is not there. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we completed this part. Inshallah, then next session will be about tasmiyah. After saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, then we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So we will talk about saying Bismillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.